When I first discovered Tolkien, I was 11. My aunt had given me the book of The Hobbit. I loved it. But then I tried to watch the Jackson movies. I was not exactly overjoyed. And for about 15 years, I was pushed away. But then at 26, I discovered Lord of the Rings and the book, and I fell in love. And it's stayed with me along with the Silmarillion almost ever since. That's been the focus almost of a great deal of my life now. The Silmarillion is both harder and more engaging in some ways. Not that I find it better written than Lord of the Rings, but that said, I love the Lord of the Rings. It's in my top couple of books. But the Silmarillion is more like mythology. It's biblical in its proportions, and you are reading about the creation of the world in the kind of with the kind of heightened drama and almost operatic glory that you might get from the Eddas or the Iliad. And it reaches to the heights of mythology, to the greatest stories mankind's ever told about itself. The Silmarillion really manages to capture, on a level that no other modern works really does, is magnificent, and there is no comparison with it. I guess it's the idea of honor. It's that now I grew up with my dad and a few other adults reading to me Le Geste de Roland, the Song of Roland and of Arthur. And the thing is, my dad greatly loved these kind of stories, and he would sometimes even try to recount his own, like make them up. But when I came to Lord of the Rings and I came to the Silmarillion and discovered, for example, Fingolfin, when he goes to challenge Morgoth after the Dagger of Bracolach, that's where he's fighting out of anger, but also honor. And it just resonated with me. But there's also, when I see, arise, arise, riders of Theoden, fell deeds awake, fire and slaughter, spear shall be shaken, shield be splintered, a sword day, a red day, ere the sun rises, ride now, ride to Gondor. I think of my dad and how he always has tried to ingrain in my brothers and I honor. And I think of him and I hear his voice when I read that part. He was a lot like Theoden in personality, and it's when I was 26 and first discovering Lord of the Rings that I found that part that I saw my dad again in a way. And honestly, I almost wept all over again. But I also think of my friend Paul, who passed, who encouraged me to read the Lord of the Rings at that time. So for me, it's about honor. Man and woman can aspire to more than material flesh. We can aspire to, across the ages, with our deeds, with our greatness, with our courage, with our valor, with our generosity. That's what it means. The character that matters most to me, that's a hard one. I really like Fingolfin from the Silmarillion, but same with Luthien. But weirdly, I'm going to fall back on my father here. Theoden kind of comes to me the most vividly right now because, well, I read the passage of the Red Day and I just love Theoden, how he is the king archetype. He represents the finest of the warrior, the priest, the lover, everything. All these Jungian archetypes. And he has all the insecurities of the Shadow King, wherein he's unsure of himself, doubts himself, and fears death because he knows that death is always inevitable for the mature king. But at the end of the day, he slumps, looks afraid for a moment, and then gathers himself up, screams out a Red Day, and charges and challenges his men to achieve greater glory, and he's the first to charge. He's the first man in the field, and I honestly really, really love that. Now, he's not my favorite character out of the entire Legendarium, but in some ways, he's the one I connect with the most because I admire that courage. Courage in his case is not the absence of fear, but the overcoming of it. And he still, in his last moments, is a father to Mary. And he longs so badly to see Éowyn without knowing she's right a few feet away from him. And, he's going, I'm never going to see my baby girl, but she's right there. On the other hand, he's so generous to Mary that he's truly a father and a king in the greatest senses of the word. He's truly one of the most remarkable characters, I think, in the Legendarium. The most faithful adaptation. This is a tricky question. I'm still only part of the way through the BBC radio drama. I'm loving it. I found Bakshi hilarious, but I honestly don't like the Samwise, how Samwise is portrayed. I hate that. He's portrayed as a bumbling buffoon who out to be basically shot because he's too stupid to live. That said, you then have the Peter Jackson adaptation where I'm not terribly fond of some of the casting choices. I don't agree with a lot of how it was shot and cut. I don't really like that adaptation. But Sam is perfect. Christopher Lee is, of course, in there, and he's always great. Sean Bean's great, as always. I think I'm strictly a book guy, but I might stick with the Radio 1 drama from BBC One, I think it is. I really like that adaptation. It's my favorite, but I'm generally more focused on the book. The books are absolute to me. I have two thoughts on it. One is that Adam Tolkien, my favorite of Tolkien's grandsons for his son Christopher, once worded it as Tolkien is not a business. And I kind of feel that this is also in relation to, my opinion, Peter Jackson's movies. I feel like Tolkien is losing, there's something being lost of the name and of the mythology that's attached to his name as we're getting more and more adaptations because he's becoming a business brand, not a name. And there's something wrong with that and awful. On the other hand, I'm weirdly indifferent towards the Rings of Power. I don't like some of the changes that are being made. I'm curious about the horror elements in the middle of the most recent trailer, but I don't know if I'm going to watch the series at all because as I'm getting older, I'm finding I like the books so much. I don't want adaptations anymore, weirdly. But if they do happen, they happen. I'll just cling harder to the books that I have, to my 3 copies of The Lord of the Rings and 2 copies of The Silmarillion. So I'll cling harder to these.
As ever, this is Salty Texas Sea. I am Corey DB. Thanks so much for watching. If you like what you've seen and heard, please hit that thumbs up button. If you haven't subscribed, I'd love to have you on board. That way you know, and we have things like live streams, which we are going to be doing every Tuesday evening. Take care. I hope you're having a great 2022.